collection Wrapped in Red. The novel, Hooks and Slaughterhouse, and the chapbooks Organ Meat, Killing Me, and Lilith. She has an MFA in creative writing. Capria resides in northern New Jersey with her husband and rabbit. What's her aunt's name?
Iphigenia.
Really good.
I'm a writer, you can tell.
Her website is not a book, and you can find her website, but it's a good website.
Oh.
Alana?
Woo! Can everybody hear me? Okay, cool.
No.
Shut up. That's my husband. He's gonna be my husband for the evening, apparently. So thanks.
As always.
So when I was originally reading, going over the piece that I was going to be doing for tonight, the published version for the Avenue was like 6.5 minutes, and Michael said 10 to 15. So this is the longer version, which is actually an excerpt from the novel. So, and it is what I like to call a domestic nightmare. It's about it's about a lady who has a kid or many kids and realizes that they're monsters, and the man who does not believe her. So there you go. So this is an excerpt from Children. Before the man met me, he nearly had a child with another woman. Because the child was made but never born, the man did not consider it real. He told me this one night while we lay in bed. I thought he was asleep. The room was dark. I stared at a corner of the room, watching the shadows shift and swirl. The man startled me when he spoke. He didn't want that first child. When he thought about it, he believed it was a dream. He never considered asking that first woman to have an abortion, but he hoped her body would pass it prematurely. When she finally bled in the way that was not wanted, he was glad. He hated that woman. The smell of her sickened him. His being with her was a mistake, but then her body saved him. All he had was the memory. The man stopped talking. He snored again. I turned onto my side. The room was darker now. I was bothered by the man's admission. The idea that he nearly had another child, that long before he knew me, he might have had a very different life, frightened me. If his child had been born, the man would not be here now. I wouldn't have the children. I didn't know if I was resentful or grateful for that. He slept so fitfully beside me. He turned in his sleep but never woke. He was unbothered now. He transferred his emotional burden to me, and now I suffered. I sat up in bed. I scratched at myself. I stared at the bottom of the bedroom door, the little slit allowing the tiniest bit of hallway light through, and when I watched, it was with squinted eyes. My face was the picture of perturbed anger. I felt how it suctioned into itself, how it wrinkled around the corners of the mouth, between the eyes. I looked from the corner of the room to the man. I clutched my pillow. I wanted to hold it against his face. I hated him for telling me anything. I never needed to know about the child that never was. I didn't need to be reminded about the woman before me. To be reminded was for me to slip into the past and be haunted by those many things that never happened. I didn't need to think about the past. There was no point when I heard things breathing in the walls. And come morning, the man was gone, and I was alone with the children. I bled thinly, and the air smelled of warm blood. The children screamed as the man departed, then went in search for me. They went running up and down the hallways, then threw themselves at the bedroom door. They shouted against the wood. I pulled the blanket over my head and held it tight against my throat until I felt suffocated. My fingers slipped and the blanket loosened, allowing a faint flow of air in. I breathed more easily. The blanket came off. I faced the room. I saw the children's shadows passing the cracks around the door. They shouted, "Mama! Mama! Mama!" The children fiddled with the door, pushing against it and playing with the knob. I held my breath. Slowly the door swung open. This was the fault of the man who never locked doors when he left. The children wouldn't leave me alone. They followed me around the house, screaming and pushing at one another. They tried gripping my legs, but I kicked them away. I locked myself in the bed. Just some casual. Don't worry about it. They tried gripping my legs, but I kicked them away. I locked myself in the bedroom, then the bathroom. The children hummed through the door. They pushed their tongues against the keyholes. They shouted my name. All day long, I heard those tiny voices screaming, "Mama." The children's voices were absurdly high-pitched, like an adult mimicking a child. The children knocked on doors, they moaned. They slumped down pretending to be dead. I sank into the corners. I pulled curtains over my head. I groaned into my hands. I brought my head against the wall, leaned back, then forced my head forward again. I hit my head, hammering against the tiles, hoping with each hit that my forehead might crack. I packed bath towels against the bottom of the door. The children pushed the towels with their fingers. They slipped their hands beneath the door, but all the children could do was move the towels slightly closer to me. Their hands went beneath the towels. They wriggled their fingers. Their fingers were very pale and reminded me of worms. What the children wanted was to eat a little bit of me, to take their mother into their mouths and keep her there, lodged in the depths of those bodies that rarely seemed to shit, and became more and more compacted with the varying lines of waste creating the bulk of their intestines. My consciousness might not be there, but I only knew one kind. There might be others, the consciousness of my hands and the consciousness of my skin, of each cell, and they might think separately from one another, consciousness after consciousness, each understanding a singular reality. If the children bit, then at least one of those mindsets would be trapped in the decomposing stomachs, would be torn and ripped, would be left to liquefy in dust. I cannot risk any part of myself becoming trapped within those children, not when I bore them, then regretted the decision. And the children would not leave the bathroom door alone. They beat themselves against the wood. The door buckled at its ends. The door curved toward me while remaining on its hinges. If the children pushed harder, the door would snap in half. I flushed the toilet bowl repeatedly to drown out the sounds of the knocking and babbling. Each time I flushed, I wished I flushed the children. I counted them in my head. One flush, one child. A second flush, second child. A third flush, a third child. The process would be done 15 times. The toilet would back up. A plumber would come to the house, put a snake to the clogged drain, and lift the children, each one clinging to the other so that they formed a sort of child chain. How could I explain to the plumber that I meant to throw them out? Then they were not the children I thought they were, but demon beasts born of my womb. The plumber would tell the man would think I was insane. The man would call me a child abuser. The police would come and take me away. They would remove me from the children. They would save me. I stared at the toilet bowl. I looked at the door. I looked back at the toilet bowl. I could not get the children down that drain. The drain was too small. Their heads would never fit. I sat on the floor and looked
So practical though.
Right? I sat on the floor and leaned my head against the toilet. I breathed onto the cool porcelain. I wanted to vomit, but didn't feel that appropriate sickness in my belly. I couldn't vomit unless my stomach lurched. My stomach was settled, at least for now. I pushed my fingers against my belly button. I applied pressure to the center of my stomach. I opened my mouth wide. I waited to vomit, but nothing came up. I pushed again. I moved my hand around, trying different areas of my abdomen. I pushed hard against the sides. I pushed against the center, against the top of my abdomen. I could not force the vomit. I laid on my side and kept my fingers against my stomach. Another child pushed its hands beneath the door. The fingers swept past the stacked towels and brushed my hands. It was the slightest touch, but the child's fingers were clearly sticky. The child reached again, but I scrambled away. I stared at the dirtiness transferred to my hand. I felt the child's stickiness. If I touched my fingers together, they stuck so that I had to pull them apart. I put my dirty hand in my mouth. I gripped the corresponding wrist and pushed my arm in deeper. My hand swept over my tongue. It bumped my tonsils. I thought of the child's dirtiness, the dirtiness that was on my hands, the dirtiness that was now on my hands, the dirtiness that filled my mouth when I inserted a hand. The child's filth was in my mouth. My stomach lurched and I leaned. The vomit came out. It flowed over my lips and onto the floor. It left a green-orange puddle. There were unidentifiable chunks in the center. I vomited again, fresh chunks landing on the deposited ones. The vomit burned my throat. My stomach tightened. The tightness was so much that I thought a cord in my stomach snapped. But the discomfort was fleeting. Despite the sour taste on my tongue, the vomit was worthwhile. I felt cleaner than I had since the labor.